Guys, good day. How you doing? My name is Elikim Kumaji, aka Elikim the Tailor, and today we're doing a short tutorial on how to do your homemade wearable face mask. Now this one is a little bit professional, more than the average one that you see. If you're new to this page, I'm new as well, so be sure to subscribe somewhere there or here or there and hit the notification bar so you can get my videos whenever I post. And my phone is also beeping in the background, but whatever. Now, we'll do it again. Phone bang! Forget about it. We will not do it again. Let's just go ahead. Now, I'm going to show you how to use strings for your face mask as opposed to elastic bands. The elastic bands sometimes tend to be either too loose or too tight, but with this you can regulate it and still have some swag to it. So let's enjoy the tutorial. So first of all, what you do is you have your fabric on fold, put on top of a surface, and then depending on how big your face is, you take your measurements from the top of your nose to the end of your chin and from ear to ear. So you mark, I got a 7" by 7" and I mark a 4 square, and what I'm doing right now is I'm marking my seam allowances. Over here is the curve area that's on top of my nose because we need it to cup like a bra, and what I'm doing right now is I'm cutting the area that goes underneath my eye. If you leave it straight, the mask is going to be touching your eye. So after curving the areas under your eye there, and that will curve on the bridge of your nose, you do your cutting. Once you're done with your cutting, you cut down where your seam allowance is, not on top of your exact measurement, so we don't get short of measurement. Now upon opening up, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to split this into 2 separate parts because I cut on fold. So ideally you can even cut if it's not on fold at the place where you need to chop it in the middle, but I got it where I need to chop in the middle. Then I make the edges fine and round, and I fit to see if upon stitching is going to give me an exact shape. And you should have this in 4 pieces because CDC and approval shows that we need to have a 2-ply or 3-ply to be able to protect against some bacteria and some level of dust. Now stitch along the edges of the places where we cut round. Always be sure to cut off your thread after stitching to give you fine finish. Now when you open up, you're going to have a roundish feel to it. That's one part gone. Now take your other 2 parts and stitch from the top where your nose starts, and then go around on the edge or the side of the place that goes from your nose to your chin. That's where we're stitching. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to stitch again the same area and this usually happens where you have your thread tearing or coming apart, and then you have to stick it back in. So again, stitch on the edge, round from the top of your nose area, all the way down to your chin, or from your chin up to your nose, whichever direction you want to go. Now once that is done, always be sure to reverse stitch and lock. Reverse stitch and lock. Now once that is done, of course, you cut off your thread, and there you go. You have your rounded edge. And now onto the next stage, we're going to put front part to front part facing each other, and we're going to target the part of the joining that has the middle parts, and that's where we're going to stitch so that we don't have one middle part overlapping the other. Join to join, make sure it's in the middle there somewhere. Oof, my fingers are not looking so good, but yeah, it's what happens when a man works. Now I haven't pinned it, so I make sure my one surface touches the other and it's exactly the same. Some people like to use pins, but I'm a quick and fast tailor, and so I avoid pins. Then this happens with a lot of practice, so I advise you to practice a lot. So you start from the middle, you stitch one side away, and then you flip it over and stitch the next side to continue. So make sure it's front attached to back, same line. Do not stretch your fabric, because some fabrics that are elastic tend to overlap each other when you stretch too much, so be sure not to stretch. your fabric. And we're done with that part right now. Always remember, again, cut your thread always at the tip. Always at the tip. There you go. Fold it in, and there we have a very round cup like feel. Now I'm going to stitch down the part of my fabric which is the inner one, but before I do that, I forgot to put the rod in my black outfit, but this rod is a copper wire, and so I put it in my rather blue or purple face mask. And when I got to the middle part, which is the nose bridge, I managed to fix and fit in my rod. So pardon me, I didn't put it in the black. I only realized I could do it with the purple, and that's where I did this. So the purple one, now you make sure you fit the rod in the middle there somewhere, and then you stitch through where this is the inner part that needs to sit flat for us to be able to have a flat facing moving forward, and we call this a facing. Now these are the rods. I want to show you how I did and polished the rod before the rods went in. So this part of the rod should have come before, but yeah, I cut the rods into 3 inches each, and then I scraped them on a piece of stone nicely. Make sure the edges are not so sharp and they're blunt. And there, I made a few pieces for a few masks, and that's how we achieve. This is free and fair information and knowledge that I'm giving out there, and I love giving, I love sharing. So that's it. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to get our strings done. You should ideally use a fabric that has a little bit of elastic in it. I want a band that's not too thick, so I'm going to mark 1.5 inches at the bottom, 1.5 inches on top, and I'm going to rule my straight line. Then I'm going to get my scissors and cut through. You need a really sharp scissors for frail fabric like this, fragile fabric. And I cut through all the way to the top one side, get my straight edges, and I cut through the other one all the way to the top the other side. And then I have my really long piece of fabric that I'm going to work with. I slit it in the middle somewhere because I'm looking for somewhere around 12 inches to maybe 13 inches. Depends on how long you want it. Maybe you want it long to fly around your back, or maybe you want it short, you can cut it off. Now I fold the first part in, and I fold the next part in and out. This fabric is very delicate, so you need to be super careful. So I fold the left part and right part in, and I fold the top part in, and then I go along to get my band. Fold in, fold in, fold in, fold in, stitch down, fold in, stitch down, fold in, stitch down. I begin to sound like a broken record. Fold in, stitch down, fold in, and stitch down. So what you do next is with the strings that we have just sewn, you put them through where the good sides of the fabric are, and let a little bit of it stick out of the inside. So where we're stitching now is actually going to be the inside of the entire thing when we're done. And then you start from the front, stitch, lock, stitch down, and then by the time you get to the base, you take your second string. We have 4 strings in total. You take your second string and put it inside where the two good sides face each other. Put it down, lock it in, leave a little bit of space at the bottom there so that you can stitch going on the left side. Once you lock your stitch, don't forget to cut off your threads nice and neat. Don't forget, we're doing professional homemade mask here. Now you do the same to the opposite sides where you get your string, put them in, let them go into where the good sides are facing each other. 1 and 2, and then you stitch from bottom to top or top to bottom. Make sure you lock and reverse where the strings are so that the strings are tightly fit in place. Moving forward, we now turn and put all of the strings that are hanging out back inside. It's as if we're almost going to close the strings inside the bad sides, while the good sides still face each other. Now remember, I'm not a big fan of pins, so I'm going to make sure that I hold top part to bottom part down, and I stitch, leaving 1 inch away from the middle part, because remember, we need space enough to turn around our fabric. Now I turn over the opposite sides and I do the same thing. I start from 1 inch away from the middle part and I stitch all the way to the edge of our mask. Don't forget, hold the top side to the bottom, hold it down, let it be in line, reverse lock your stitch, and then you go down. And that will be all for now. Go down, yes, lock your stitch, cut, and that'll be all for now. And then you come to iron. Don't forget, you can have a sprinkler or a steam iron, so you can sprinkle water on a steam iron. Always use a press piece for a neat work, neat finish. Ironing gives us the best results ever. And so press down. Ironing is very important. And there you go. Iron all your strings, your strands, and the mask itself for everything to sit down nice. And okay, so guys, these are some finished products. This is our very traditional kente fabric. This is a mustard color. You can see I put a touch of what we call the jinyame. You can put a button. You can put anything fancy. Thank you guys very much for joining me here and learning this tutorial with me. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on the notification bar so you can get more tips and tricks. My name is Elikim Kumoji, aka Elikim the Tailor. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe again and again, and call your friends to call a friend. Bye.